Hello, and thank you for joining me on this Foodoffensive Weekly news, where I bring you things that are going on right now, trying to keep it as current as possible. If you saw any of my videos in 2012, you'll know that I bring anything from GMOs to aspartame and every deadly substance in between. And these are items that are fully approved by our FDA and regulatory agencies and touted as safe by those very companies that manufacture them and sell them to us. So this week the news will contain some of those items and also various things that are going on, and every week I'm going to try to bring you an action alert, something that is coming up that really needs to have attention brought to it, and that's really my goal here, because I could just be selfish and keep the information that I read to myself and go off and do something fun with my family or friends or whatever, and not that I don't get to do any of that, but I could just go on and act like nothing else is going on other than myself knowing the information. But my whole goal is to actually get the information out. So if you're watching me on local cable here, thanks for joining me, and I encourage you to vote on this video if you find it informative and want to see more in the future, hopefully getting into different time slots and things like that as things go along, and I kind of prove myself. So we'll also be experimenting with some other various state studio setups and things until I get into a professional type studio. So bear with me until we do that. But for me, it's really all about the information. So the next half hour here will be strictly about that information, about what we're eating and how it's detrimental to our health in many ways. So the first bit of information here I want to bring you is a study and a report, really, an investigative report that was put out quite recently from eatdrinkpolitics.com. The author there, Michelle Simon, she basically is exposing the AND, American Nutrition and Dietetics Association, and about the fact of who their sponsors are and who sponsors this particular organization and the weight that this particular organization has when it comes to our health, at least here in America. So this is very important. This was just released here this week, and January 23rd here for immediate release, it says. And I'm just going to go through this. There's several things I'll show you. It'll be going back and forth. This is teleprompter free for the most part, as far as just me reading something to you. I'm actually going through my notes that I've done, that I've taken time to research and study. So you'll kind of see intermittently going to full screen information from the very articles that I'm reading, the very websites that I'm showing you, very pictures that I'm referring to. So I want to really focus on all of those things. So going right along here, the title of basically this article that has been put out referring to the study that she put out, the full report she put out, and I will be reading some excerpts from that report. Basically, it's entitled, "And Now a Word from Our Sponsors, a New Report from Eat Drink Politics." And the subtitle of that report says, "Are America's Nutritional Professionals in the Pocket of Big Food?" Well, we'll look at that today and really lay that out. It starts out by saying, public health attorney and author Michelle Simon asks, "Are America's nutritional professionals in the pocket of big food?" While the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics 74,000 member trade group partners with the likes of Coke and Hershey's, the nation's health continues to suffer from poor diet. And it goes on, it says, the largest trade group of nutrition professionals, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, has a serious credibility problem. In a damning report released today, industry watchdog Eat Drink Politics examines the various forms of corporate sponsorship by big food that are undermining the integrity of those professionals' most responsible for educating Americans about healthy eating. And I'm going to break down some of the things that it says. It's quite a lengthy report, but there's an executive summary, and you can see me scrolling through the actual PDF that you can get yourself and have on file just to have as information for yourself, and you can read the full thing yourself. And I want to go into that. There's an executive summary. There's a full report that's quite lengthy, but there's an executive summary that kind of points out some key points and an overview of this full report that she gives. And you can see here the title page of this, and now a word from our sponsors. It says it uses the initials AND, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and it really shows all the big companies that are within that and the sponsors that are part of the A&D for short, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Are America's Nutrition Professionals in the Pocket of Big Food by Michelle Simon. This is quite the research she has done, and it's very, very disturbing in one way, but it's good to know for us because this is a big deal. So, executive summary. It says, by any measure, the nation is currently suffering from an epidemic of diet-related health problems. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, chronic diseases such as heart attack, stroke, cancer, and diabetes are among the most common, costly, and preventable of all health problems. And it goes on to say, it talks about the A&D and its involvement with these groups, and it says, why does it matter? As this report will show, the food industry's deep infiltration of the nation's top nutrition organization raises serious questions not only about that profession's credibility, but also about its policy positions. The nation is currently embroiled in a series of policy debates about how to fix our broken food system. A 74,000-member health organization has great potential to shape that natural discourse, for better or for worse. And this summary lays out the findings, and these are all found in great detail in this full report that she has that you have access to as well, PDF form, and I also have links with this video. But here are some of the findings. It says, beginning in 2001, A&D listed 10 food industry sponsors. The 2011 annual report lists 38, a more than threefold increase. The most loyal A&D sponsor is the National Cattlemen's Beef Association for 12 years running from 2001 to 2012. Processed food giants ConAgra and General Mills have been A&D sponsors for 10 of the last 12 years. So that, along with this next company, Kellogg and the National Dairy Council, have been A&D sponsors for 9 of the last 12 years. So those 3, 4, or 5 companies there have been there for over a decade. That's not really, this isn't new news, but it goes on. Companies on A&D's list of approved continuing education providers include Coca-Cola, Kraft Foods, Nestle, and PepsiCo. So these are companies that are teaching our dietitians, the very dietitians that are saying, in our hospitals, they're in our schools, they are involved with creating food that more than likely we eat, whether on a daily basis or quite often. These major companies that are very well known, that I've covered in the past for creating food that's the exact opposite and that it's terrible for us, they're the ones schooling and educating, continuing education courses on with our dietitians. So this is why it's quite important that we get the word out on this. Another finding here: among the messages taught in Coca-Cola sponsored continuing education courses are, and this is what it says: sugar is not harmful to children, aspartame is completely safe, including for children over 1 year, and the Institute of Medicine is too restrictive in its school's nutrition standards. So aspartame, the very company, Coca-Cola, that uses aspartame in its diet drinks, says it's not. It says that it's completely safe. How about that? A company that benefits from a product says that that product's safe to eat. Of course they're going to say that. Another finding at A&D's 2012 annual meeting, 18 organizations. It's less than 5% of all exhibitors, captured 25% of the total exhibitor space. Only 2 out of the 18 represented whole, non-processed foods. So a big part of this last meeting they had, the annual meeting in 2012, the majority of the space and time taken up by at this convention were these companies that are creating this harmful food. It also says based on the square footage, only about 12% of the expo floor was taken up by fruit and vegetable vendors using A&D's own generous classification. Wow. The A&D Foundation sells, quote, nutrition symposia sponsorships for $50,000 at the annual meeting. In 2012, Nestle presented a session on optimal hydration. It goes on to say the Corn Refiners Association, which are lobbyists for high fructose corn syrup, sponsored 3, quote, Expo Impact sessions at the A&D 2012 annual meeting. And another one says roughly 23% of annual meeting speakers had industry ties, although most of these conflicts were not disclosed in the program session description. In an independent survey, 80% of registered dietitians said sponsorship implies academy endorsement of that company and its products. Almost all RDs surveyed, which is about 97%, thought the academy should verify that a sponsor's corporate mission is consistent with that of the academy prior to accepting them. So again, by me covering this, and I don't believe that this person that did the report is blaming RDs themselves, particularly the dietitians, but of course being involved with this kind of company, unfortunately it comes with that tie. And it says that most of them that were surveyed believe that that the academy should verify that these sponsors that they're using are, consistent with the mission of that organization. And obviously these companies are not, if the dietitian organization wants to be serving healthy food. A majority of RDs surveyed found 3 current A&D sponsors, quote, unacceptable, and those were Coca-Cola, Mars, and PepsiCo. I would agree with that. And then it goes on to talk about some of the funding, and you can look at some of that on your later on if you download these articles, talking about the assets and corporate contributions, things like that. Follow the money every time. Follow the money. It's unbelievable. And she also lays out some of the recommendations that would be in the best interest of the A&D. And so I wanted to look at one more thing in addition to the executive summary I just showed you, the full summary that you can download, and also the initial article. But also I wanted to point out, in addition to those things, there is a sponsorship report on some of the registered dietitians. They've actually come out and gave some comments concerning their beliefs and what their feelings are towards some of these sponsors, and some of them are no longer members, needless to say, of this organization. Well, moving right along, before I run out of time here, I wanted to cover a couple more things with you. A couple of issues I wanted to point out this evening, and news that happened this week again, or have been published this week, referring to something from the past, but something that's very well pressing, and this could easily be an action alert. I will cover the second piece here, will be the actual third thing I covered this evening, will concern an action alert, reviewing again what I covered last week with the genetically engineered salmon, but also bringing about another piece of information as well. And this particular it kind of ties into this next article here, and it's a lot of places cover this, but I'm looking at the naturalnews.com article. The health ranger Mike Adams runs that site, and this particular article is by Carol Ann Wright, published Tuesday, June 22nd, and it's titled, "A New Farm Bill Gives Monsanto Carte Blanche. There's a massive outcry necessary to stop the legislation from passing into law." And I'm going to go over this. I'm going to show you the actual farm bill as well, and the actual section that it's in and everything. So stay tuned for that. But basically the article starts out by saying, imagine judicial review for protecting consumer rights and the environment going up in a puff of smoke, and biotech corporations like Monsanto having complete immunity to plant whatever they want, whenever they want, without testing. This is exactly what a small amendment in the proposed new farm bill guarantees. And going through this article, it refers to the fine print. This bill is titled H.R. 5973, Agricultural, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act 2013. And it's legislation that will form agricultural and food policy in the United States if passed, according to American Farmland Trust. Now, this bill, H.R. 5973, it's been dubbed as the Monsanto Protection Act, and it really does just that. It protects Monsanto from what they have, many people have agreed it does. There's a small rider in Section 73 of this that grants biotech companies free rein with little oversight. Now, I want to look at that. This is going to be the full text of this bill. I've got it highlighted here, Section 733. You can see it here, and it goes through that. It's a short little section, and I'll have the link to this. You can get it from a government website, but I'll have the link to it. You can download it yourself in PDF. But going back to the original article here, it says, the legal team at the Center for Food Safety translates Section 73 as a, quote, dangerous assault on fundamental federal and judicial safeguards, and, quote, would create a precedent-setting limitation on judicial review. And this bill has, the vote for it has been delayed in the House of Representatives, and as of 2012, it has not been represented in the House. And an extension has been approved, which pushes the vote into 2013. Well, we're into 2013, and that's why many writers, many food freedom centered writers have brought this back to life as far as the news goes for it, and bringing about awareness to the public. And that's why I am bringing it back to you. This is very important. As always, every week, this type of thing will take precedence over other news in food. Of course, I don't cover who the next celebrity chef is going to be based on some win that they have at a, quote, reality cooking show. But all those things are, entertaining and fun to watch. As a chef, I can get some ideas from that, and it's just all around entertaining. Sometimes I can relate to people that are in those shows as far as, it is difficult or, whatever. But that's not a priority for me to cover. I wish that we could focus on that. I wish we could just do that and have fun. But, if we don't take care of this business, we have no future when it comes to food. We are going to be absolutely in real danger, way more than we are now. We are already in some grave danger when it comes to our food supply. So I just want to put this type of thing at the forefront of what I do, and I'm only taking 30 minutes each week. I know people don't have a lot of time, so not even time to do the full 30 minutes. That's why I put the links and everything for you to cover, and I'll be doing maybe short reports and blogging about certain articles that are of high importance, such as this one. So this type of thing will always take precedence, even though I have, as you can see, maybe on the video description or whatever, however you're getting this on the website or wherever, there are just links after links of news from this week that I have thought were noteworthy enough to include in those links, but obviously I can't cover them all. I can barely cover 2 to 3 in the time that I have. So, but it gives a list, this article, of all the, just taking some quotes from other articles, some other food freedom related articles and news sites concerning this bill, and they have their own little quotes in there. But there was one from the Daily Paul I wanted to look at here, and it's titled "Monsanto Rider: A New Bill Could Make Biotech Companies Immune to Courts," and this is from the Daily Paul. And it just basically goes on. It says, if passed, and this is by Ron Paul supposedly, an amendment in the Agricultural Appropriations Bill will not just allow, but require the Secretary of Agriculture to grant permits for planting or cultivating GM crops, even if a federal court has given an injunction against it. Basically, all Monsanto and other biotech companies have to do is ask, and the industry gets its way. Issues like crop contamination, damage to farmers or consumers, court's orders, or USDA studies all go out the window, and the biotech industry cashes in. And it goes on to quotes Food Democracy Now! And at the end here, it talks about Representative Peter DeFazio. He's the one that's been trying to push through an amendment that would kill the havoc-wreaking rider. He has the support of organizations like Organic Consumers Associations, Center for Food Safety, and others. Their warnings have been circulating the web, gathering attention and support, but will they be enough to sway the House? And this article also refers to an RT article that the Natural News article refers to as well. With that, I'm going to move on to the next and final issue here tonight, and a couple of action alerts that kind of ties into. I looked at a petition last week, a letter that you could send, like a form letter you could send to the FDA, and also I want to look this week and just reinforce that you can send something else, another form maybe a little bit easier for you if you have less time, but it's fooddemocracynow.org. They have an article on this, and it's basically to ban GMO salmon. It says, tell President Obama and the FDA that you won't eat GMO salmon. It says, right now President Obama and bureaucrats at the FDA are preparing to unleash genetically engineered salmon on the market. After years of controversial regulatory review, this past week the Obama administration cleared a hurdle for Aqua Bounty's GMO salmon to be approved at any moment. On Friday, December 21st, 2012, FDA bureaucrats declared that Aqua Bounty's GMO salmon poses no, quote, significant risk to the environment. This recent FDA decision comes on top of the agency's 2010 declaration that the GMO salmon were safe for humans to eat, despite no independent long-term studies. And I highlight the fact that there is no long-term studies for this, and that's really the problem when it comes to Monsanto and other biotech companies and GMOs. They really don't give adequate time. Usually they're less than 90 days, the tests are, and that's really an issue because now we're seeing the effects of these things. Cancer's off the charts, many other sicknesses and illnesses that are being attributed to that, and with only 90 days of tests, they really can't see what's going to happen long term, and they're trying to push through this GMO salmon again. And we could, this information from the Food Democracy Now! Says that we could see it in supermarkets and restaurants as early as 2013, and we're in 2013. This could happen this year if they push this through. And I looked and I covered my past report that I did on quote Frankenfish and GM salmon, genetically engineered salmon, and the effects and the dangers and the risks of doing this that they're wanting to do. So I really urge you to fill that out. You can actually just send your name, email, your state, that type of information, and they'll send a letter on your behalf. Food Democracy Now! Will. But on a good note, and a positive note on that same issue, from Food Safety News, they cover the fact that a Missouri bill has been introduced to require GM fish and meat labeling. This was put out January 23rd, and there's a state senator in St. Louis that has introduced a bill requiring the labeling of genetically modified meat and fish. In this bill, Senator Nasheed, she says, while I understand that food production is an integral Missouri industry, I don't feel the trend of biotechnology and genetically engineered foods is always apparent to the average citizen. I am merely asking for clarity in the sale of certain genetically engineered, or GE, foods to Missouri's customers. She said that this SB 155 bill requires any genetically modified meat or fish raised or sold in Missouri to be clearly labeled as genetically engineered as of September 1st, 2015. So she's planning ahead and hoping to get it all done in the next couple of years. And she goes on to talk about the labeling initiatives. It looks like New Mexico and Washington State also have similar bills that were introduced this year. Of course, we saw that in November, Prop 37 got shot down in California. Whether that was truly real or was it fraud, I'm not sure. But this is good news that there are people, like I said earlier, there are people in Congress and representatives of our state that want to get this done. And hopefully, if the states, we can utilize those states' rights that we have, the individual states, and really change and overcome what the federal government is trying to push through. Because we know that these big agricultural companies are deep into their pockets and giving them money, and the politicians and things like that, and it's not right, because we're eating it while they all day insist on eating organics. And I've covered that also, how our presidential candidates especially are into the organics and the healthy food when they're allowing these other things to go through for us mere slaves. So that's that. And a bit of information this week. Hopefully all those things are important to you as they are to me. And before I run out of time here, I just want to thank you for joining me this week. And stay tuned as I post things throughout the week, and I cover each news weekly, and it's very time sensitive, and it's a great challenge for me to try to get this out on time each week. So until next time, this has been Foodoffensive.com with Food Offensive Weekly News, coming at you from the front lines of our food supply. Thank you for joining me.